Did you know that Gregory Peck and Charlton Heston weren't just acting angry on screen? They were caught in a genuine feud that spilled into filming, or that Simmons became so frustrated she almost walked off the movie entirely. Today, we're diving into 15 weird facts you never knew about the big country. Number 1. Gregory Peck and Charlton Heston had a real-life feud. While their characters clash with quiet intensity on screen, the tension between Gregory Peck and Charlton Heston behind the scenes was far louder and far more personal. Peck, known for his calm and controlled acting style, often became frustrated with Heston's extremely physical, athletic, and dominating approach. Heston thought Peck took too long to prepare scenes, while Peck thought Heston performed like he was trying to win a wrestling match, not act. The feud got so distracted that director William Wyler had to shoot several scenes with the two actors filmed separately, even though their characters shared the same screen space. This feud ended only years later, and strangely, the two men eventually became good friends. Number 2. Charlton Heston was originally cast for a much smaller role. When Heston first signed the contract, his character, Steve Leach, was meant to be a small supporting role. But during filming, Wyler noticed Heston's dedication, strong presence, and physical athleticism, and began secretly expanding his role. By the end of production, Heston had more screen time than originally written, more action scenes, and even a rewritten character arc. The weird part? Heston later admitted he didn't even like the film, but it ended up influencing his career so much that he took more Western roles afterward. Number 3. The famous fight scene between Peck and Heston was shot last because it was too dangerous. One of the most iconic scenes in the film, the brutal, exhausting fist fight between Peck and Heston, was actually saved for the very end of production. Why? Because the studio worried that the actors might get seriously injured, causing the entire filming schedule to collapse. Both actors refused stunt doubles, insisting on doing the entire fight themselves. They ended up fighting for hours in extreme heat on dangerous, rocky terrain. Heston later admitted that both men walked away with bruised ribs, cut knuckles, and swollen faces, and that the scene looked so real because it basically was. Number 4. Simmons nearly left the movie. Director William Wyler was famous for being demanding, but in this film, he pushed Simmons harder than anyone expected. Simmons was already stressed due to a heavy workload from previous films, and Wyler's habit of doing 30 to 40 takes per scene drove her to exhaustion. At one point, Simmons reportedly told the producers she wanted to walk off the set entirely. Wyler then quietly reduced her shooting hours and softened his approach. But to this day, many film historians believe her performance feels so natural because she wasn't acting frustration. She was genuinely frustrated. Number 5. The massive ranch sets were built in the middle of nowhere. To capture the truly big feeling of the American frontier, Wyler demanded that the ranch sets be built miles away from any town, on untouched land. The studio agreed, which created an unexpected problem. The filming location was so remote that actors, crew members, and delivery trucks kept getting lost in the desert, with some wandering for hours. Gregory Peck even joked that the place was so empty you could lose a cowboy and never find him again. Production was delayed several times because transportation literally couldn't find the set. Number 6. William Wyler's obsession nearly bankrupted the production. Wyler didn't just want wide shots. He wanted landscapes that looked like paintings come to life, untouched by civilization. This obsession forced the production team to spend weeks scouting remote areas where not a single road, pole, or modern structure was visible. The strangest part? Wyler often rejected perfect location because a tiny element felt too modern, like a distant fence or a hidden cattle trough that couldn't even be seen on camera. At one point, the studio grew so frustrated they told Wyler he was making an outdoor movie indoors because of how much manipulation each location required. But Wyler refused to compromise, and his extreme commitment is why the film still looks visually massive, even by today's standard. Number 7. Gregory Peck secretly rewrote portions of the script without telling anyone. Peck was not just the star, he was also quietly shaping the story behind the scenes. He believed the original script made his character, James McKay, too quiet and passive, and he felt the emotional weight of the film wasn't strong enough. So Peck began writing small changes, rewriting rewriting lines, and even adjusting scenes to give McKay more dignity and inner strength. What's wild is that Peck never told the writer. He only discussed the changes with Wyler, who actually approved them. Only years later did the screenwriters discover that several of the emotional moments fans love today were Peck's own addition, not theirs. Number 8. Burl Ives was so good that Wyler rewrote multiple scenes. Burl Ives, who played Rufus Hennessy, delivered such a commanding performance that Wyler realized the movie needed more of him. Originally, Rufus was a slightly smaller, less central figure, but Ives's natural intensity, booming voice, and surprisingly emotional acting made him magnetic on screen. Wyler began expanding his scene, rewriting confrontations, and emphasizing the generational bitterness between the Hennessy's and the Terrell. This creative decision paid off. Ives won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor, and most people today assume his character was always written as a major force. But in reality, the film's emotional backbone shifted because of Ives's powerhouse performance. Number 9. The massive horse stampede scene was so dangerous. One of the biggest action sequences in the movie, the horse stampede, was considered so risky that multiple insurance firms refused to cover it unless Wyler changed the choreography. The problem? Wyler wanted real horses, real dust, real risk, and minimal editing tricks. He believed that the chaos of an uncontrolled stampede would feel more violent and overwhelming. The stunt riders were forced to rehearse for weeks, and several were thrown off their horses during early tests. Gregory Peck reportedly begged Wyler not to stay so close to the action because one wrong step could crush a man in seconds. In the end, they filmed the scene exactly as Wyler wanted, and it remains one of the most intense animal action sequences ever captured during Hollywood's golden age. Number 10. The film's epic running time was a compromise after a heated fight. The Big Country runs an impressive 166 minutes, but Wyler originally wanted a version that was even longer, closer to 3.5 hours. The studio refused, demanding tighter pacing and more commercial appeal. This sparked a behind-the-scenes war between Wyler and the producer, who wanted to cut entire scenes involving character development and political tension between the two ranch families. Wyler eventually compromised, trimming down scenes he considered essential. But even after the cuts, the studio still thought the movie was too long. They only approved the release after test audiences loved the sweeping, slow burn style, proving Wyler's instincts were right. To this day, fans wonder how much deeper and more complex the film could have been if Wyler's original version had survived. Number 11. Gene Simmons filmed several scenes while suffering from severe heat exhaustion. The Big Country was shot in blistering heat, and Gene Simmons, who played Julie Marigon, had one of the toughest roles on set. Many of her key emotional scenes were filmed in full sun, on dusty plains where temperatures often crossed 43 degrees Celsius. What's shocking is that Simmons actually suffered heat exhaustion multiple times, even collapsing off camera between takes. But instead of halting production, Wyler encouraged her to keep going as long as she felt capable. Crew members later admitted that some of her most vulnerable performances, including scenes where her character appears visibly drained, were not acting. They were genuine reactions to the extreme conditions. Despite the physical cost, Simmons's dedication became part of the film's emotional authenticity. Number 12. William Wyler banned all crew members from using the word epic. Director William Wyler was constantly frustrated by reporters, producers, and even crew members calling The Big Country an epic western. He felt the word was overused, inaccurate, and put the wrong expectation on the film's tone. He didn't want a giant war or mythic hero story. He wanted a character-driven drama set in a large landscape. So, believe it or not, Wyler banned the entire crew from using the word epic on set. If anyone slipped and called a scene epic, Wyler would stop the conversation, correct them, and insist they use terms like intimate, human, or personal story in a big world. Multiple crew members later joked that avoiding the word became a running joke. Some even kept a tally of how many times Wyler corrected people. Ironically, despite his ban, The Big Country eventually became famous as one of the most iconic epic westerns ever made. Number 13. The film's massive water cistern was built twice. One of the film's central plot elements is the precious water supply controlled by Julie Marigon, represented by a huge stone stone cistern. The prop department originally built an extremely polished and structurally accurate cistern, but Wyler hated it. He said it looked like something designed by a government engineer, not a structure passed down through generations on the frontier. So he ordered the entire structure torn down and rebuilt from scratch, this time with cracks, uneven stone, and natural weathering. The second version ended up costing significantly more, both in time and money. But Wyler insisted that the cistern needed to look ancient and burdened by history, because it symbolized the decades-long feud of the Terrells and Hennessy. It's a rare case where a director rejected perfection for realism. Number 14. The epic duel scene was rehearsed for 3 weeks. The showdown between Gregory Peck's James McKay and Charlton Heston's Steve Leach is remembered for being unusually personal, gritty, and grounded. Not glamorous like typical Hollywood duel, but what most viewers don't know is that Peck and Heston trained for weeks, learning movements that weren't smooth or elegant. Wyler wanted the fight to look like two strong men who weren't professional fighters, men driven by pride, frustration, and suppressed anger. Peck later admitted he hated filming the duel because Wyler kept demanding take after take, where both actors had to stumble, fall, and genuinely hit the dirt. The final scene looks raw and almost uncomfortable, exactly as Wyler intended, and it became one of the most realistic fistfights of its era. Number 15. The film's musical score was nearly rejected. Jerome Moros's sweeping orchestral score is now considered one of the greatest Western soundtracks ever created, but early test audiences actually found it too large, too grand, and too dramatic for a traditional Western. Producers even discussed replacing the entire score with something quieter and more minimalist. The irony? The music's bigness was intentional. Moros wanted the score to mirror the massive landscapes and emotional scale of the story, not the gunfighting cliches typical of the genre. Wyler defended the music fiercely, refusing to cut a single note. Today, the score is celebrated as the signature sound of the film, proving once again that bold artistic decisions age better than safe ones.